The NES era of console gaming is one of the most important sections of gaming history. It saved the industry and changed the public's perception around gaming in the West. So much so that, even today, I meet people who reflect positively on their childhood centered around the NES. It's ironic then that loads of NES games are and were never that great. The Nintendo seal of quality only guaranteed that a game was playable from start to finish, but whether it was actually a game of substance, of value, is left to interpretation. There are a few series, like Mega Man, who bucked the trend of being poor games that were technically playable, as each Mega Man game on the NES is actually one of the better titles on that system. You're watching Rayl Deal Games, and I did not grow up with the NES. I played around on one, which is how I first experienced titles like Super Mario Bros., Excitebike, Ninja Gaiden, and Jaws. The fact that I grew up primarily with the PS1 and PS2 dictates my taste in gaming and the inherent biases that go into my evaluation of games. That being said, I literally love vintage games, and over the past year, my friends and I have been playing through the Mega Man franchise. Today, I'm taking a look at the final games on the NES, Mega Man's 5 and 6. Coming out of the masterclass game of Mega Man 4, I had seriously high hopes for these two games, and unfortunately, neither one of them lives up to those expectations. But just because a game doesn't live up to a lofty ideal does not instantly mean it is bad, and neither one of these games are something I would call terrible. They are fine. It's just that Mega Man 6 is way more fine than Mega Man 5. By taking a look at the level design, weapon suite, boss design, and innovations of the two games, I'm going to explain what I mean. If you liked the video today, consider smashing that like button, subscribing, and leaving a comment below. My big goal for the year is 10,000 subscribers, and with you in my community, I know we can get there. With all of that established, let's dive right in. Like I said at the top, these are not bad games. As such, I'm going to focus on the elements of them that I like the most, and to this end, I've selected my 3 favorite levels from each game. In Mega Man 5, I quite liked Napalm, Gravity, and Wave Man's levels, and in Mega Man 6, the standouts for me are Flame, Blizzard, and Centaur Man. There's some serious nuance intrinsic to why I like Mega Man 6's levels more. At a glance, Mega Man 5 actually has the more interesting levels, as both Gravity and Wave Man stages add mechanics to the typical platforming design of the Mega Man series. Gravity Man's stage allows the player to shift the directionality of gravity, which causes part of the level to treat the ceiling as the floor. This sort of idea was not common back in early 90s platformers, making it really stand out within the context of gaming history. Wave Man's stage adds these bubble riding and water bike sections, breaking up the typical flow and feel of Mega Man's gameplay even more. I could see how someone would highly value these aspects of Mega Man 5's level design, and by and large, I also do. However, the water bike section in particular lays the foundation for some of my least favorite aspects of Mega Man X4 and X5, gimmick design. I know this is something that's going to come up again in Mega Man 8, and while I do hope that game manages to pull it off, it does make me apprehensive about playing it. Gimmicks in Mega Man just don't mix in my opinion, and I much prefer when the games are more laser focused on what makes Mega Man good: the Robot Master loop, tightly designed short levels, and awesome boss fights. This is why I like Mega Man 6 much more. Flame Man and Blizzard Man's levels also add elements to the platforming feel of Mega Man via their oil pits and ice physics respectively, and it does make me like the levels more as a result. I especially love the final gauntlet over an oil pit that has several of these flame-singing bots on higher platforms on Flame Man's level. By this point, the mechanics of fire in this level are readily understood by the player, and this particular section just flows super nicely while also providing a decent enough challenge to the player, especially if they are a little light on weapons and power-ups, although those are things we'll talk about shortly enough. Something I define as being important for the level design of Mega Man is the selection of enemies and how those enemies reflect the theming of the stage. Blizzard Man's enemies, seals and such are cool, but this is kind of an area that Mega Man 5 beats 6 on. I did say my feelings about these games were a bit nuanced, so let me tell you what I mean. Napalm Man's name kind of directs the player, if they are from the United States anyway, to think in one particular direction: Vietnam. While I obviously was not alive during that time frame, Nam impacted the social consciousness of the states so much that it almost feels like a natural thought process to end up at that conclusion when reading Napalm Man's name. I was not surprised then that this level is jungle themed, with tiger enemies, underground tunnels, and literal Apache attack helicopters. The Capcom developers knew what they were doing with this stuff, and they also knew they were going to be selling this game primarily in Japan and the US. Juxtaposing this with a stage like Centaur Man's, and the difference in theming is quite insane. Centaur Man's level is great, and I personally quite like it, but the enemies and water theming of the stage create a sort of dissonance between the player's expectation of the stage and what it actually is. Centaurs, at least in the States, are often way more associated with trees and forests than a submarine bay. That being said, Centaur Man has the better level in my book, and that's because the raw theming and level design of the stage is not all that matters in a Mega Man game. The weapon suite, enemy compositions, and bosses matter just as much, if not more. Putting it simply, neither of these games have an amazing weapon suite. However, Mega Man 6 does have a better one than 5. These games possibly have the worst assortment of weapons out of all of the NES Mega Man titles, but the way they use the weapons they have directly impacts the overall value of the entire set. The charge shot in Mega Man 5 is so overtuned and powerful that it makes any good weapons it may have obsolete and irrelevant. This combined with the way the enemies in Mega Man 5 always seem to come at the player at a diagonal, as my friend Ryan rightfully noticed, makes several parts of the stages kind of obnoxious to play through. The way the enemies in Mega Man 6 play against the Mega Buster is far better, and since the charge shot receives a substantial nerf, the player is incentivized to use the rapid shot and other Robot Master weapons. There are actually sections in Mega Man 6 where I felt I needed to switch to another weapon, although it was Flame Man's weapon most of the time. The lobbed arc of that weapon is super nice to hitting very specific enemies that sit right below and just out of reach of Mega Man's Mega Buster. So the basic enemies sometimes suck in Mega Man 5, and they're pretty alright in Mega Man 6, but what about the bosses? Some bosses in Mega Man 5, like Charge Man, are kind of fun, but I found most of them to not be fun at all. Most of the time, the bosses are positioned in similar ways to the base enemies, at angles that are just annoying. Those are usually killed easily by their weakness, but sometimes, like Charge Man again, have a weakness that just sucks against them. Charge Man is weak to the asteroid rock power, but the projectile arc of this weapon is so dog water that you're better off just not using it like ever. That is one of the key things that makes Mega Man 5 worse than Mega Man 6, as one of the key identity features of the series is how Mega Man goes around killing bosses and stealing their powers. Not having boss weapons that are fun to use, especially against the bosses that they are supposed to be good against, is just a big nombo combo. It just doesn't feel good. Alternatively, the weapons in Mega Man 6, while also not being the best or super interesting, at least play well against the Robot Masters they're supposed to be good against. Additionally, they get more use in the Wily stages, which can't be said of Mega Man 5's later stages. Several bosses in the latter half of Mega Man 5 are only weak to the bonus bird the player can earn by collecting the Mega Man 5 letters hidden throughout the stages. While I like the idea Capcom was going for, they only succeeded at making the Robot Master weapons even more irrelevant than they already are. The level design between the two games may have been super close in terms of quality, but when this aspect of each game's design is taken into account, Mega Man 6 really does feel like a much better complete package. Even the aspects of Mega Man 5 that are better or more interesting don't bridge the gulf between them, a gap that widens when we talk about the innovations each game brings to the formula. Mega Man 5's innovations to the Mega Man formula is tied to the interesting things it does with its level design that I mentioned previously. The bubbles on Wave Man stage and the gravity mechanics on Gravity Man stage. These innovations would become more common throughout the 90s in both the mainline and X sub-series, however this aspect of innovation would become detrimental as the decade would go on. Gimmicky design is part of what would lead to the shelving of both series for a long time, until Mega Man 9 came out at least. Mega Man 6, however, expands on the mobility tools the player has access to. As the game progresses, the player will unlock two armor sets, a jet-based one and a power armor one. The jet one allows the player to jet up after a brief momentum-building blast of energy. This thing is super fun and adds a lot to the platforming of the Mega Man series. In terms of innovations, this particular set of armor foreshadows what Mega Man X would do the very next year, and we all know how awesome the armor collecting and mobility tools present in the first few X games are. The power armor set allows the player to break open blocks that have these cracks tracks on them. This is where a lot of the game's secrets are hidden, and while the secret routes in this game aren't super special, they are neat. In this way, Mega Man 6 innovates upon Mega Man the most of all the games, other than perhaps Mega Man 3 or 4. Mega Man 6 has far more in common with the X sub-series at least, and considering how the mainline series would take a 2-year hiatus following this game, I don't think that's an accident. At the end of each one of my reviews, I answer the question, will the game I'm reviewing make my top 100 games of its release decade? This video is going to be a little bit different because we got 2 to look at for this, so how about we do that? Neither one of these games are going to make my list. In terms of Mega Man, a game has to be at least as good as Mega Man 4 or Mega Man X to have a chance of hitting the list, and neither Mega Man 5 or 6 are that level of quality. That being said, Mega Man 6 is closer to making the list than Mega Man 5. Replayability is one of the key things that impact whether a game can make one of my lists or not, and my rationale for this is that the best games from any particular decade are of such a high quality that someone would want to play them twice or more. Between the two, the combination of mobility tools, level and boss design, and weapon suite in Mega Man 6 makes it much more enticing than Mega Man 5 to root through again. And these core aspects of its design is why, at least for me, Mega Man 6 is way better than Mega Man 5. And that's the video, my guys. What do you all think of the NES era of Mega Man? Let's discuss in the comments below, and while you're down there, smash that like button and subscribe. I make new gaming videos every single Wednesday and Friday, and I'd love to have you in my community. If you have a moment right now, consider checking out one of my other videos on the screen. Regardless of what you choose to do, thank you for keeping it real with Rayl Deal Games. Have an awesome day, my friend.